What is a good weakness to mention on a job interview? When I was graduating college, I got interview tips from my dad, who was heavily involved in the hiring process at his company for his department. His advice on this one, which I've used ever since and has gone great, was, the whole say a weakness that's actually a positive has been done to death and is such common knowledge that it's no longer a clever trick and is now seen as avoiding the question. People want to see some self-awareness. Obviously don't bring something absolutely terrible up, but mention a real flaw and most importantly what you've done to address or work with it. For example, the one I tend to use is that I can be forgetful, so I now keep multiple sets of calendars, reminders, notes, etc. to cover as much as possible. If you are changing industries, your biggest weakness is not knowing the industry yet. If you are younger, say inexperience. Anything to show your willingness to learn and develop. Actual weakness, taking on jobs by myself, not taking time to train other people to do them. In the end, I'm usually the guy and find myself feeling burnt out. Probably could be worded better at an interview, but this could sound like you're a go-getter. It might also encourage your employer to find opportunities for you to train other people to do things you particularly don't like doing. I work in healthcare and always say not speaking Spanish, and odds are the interviewer is also not fluent in Spanish, so it comes across as not really a weakness. Win-win. Depends on the position, but I will sometimes say that I have trouble delegating when I know I can perform a task well. I'd rather just do it myself and know that everything will be done correctly. Edit. Thank you for the various precious metals. I realize this advice can backfire. That's why I said sometimes. There is also a way to phrase this that makes you sound better. Frame it in terms of something you're looking to improve. Well, at my last performance evaluation I received some constructive criticism regarding X. So since then I've been doing Y and Z to focus on improving in that regard. Honestly though, if an interviewer asks you that ridiculous cliched question, either they have no idea what they're doing and or don't give a shit, or they aren't looking for an answer but just want to see how you respond to being pushed. I once got a job partly because of my honest answer to this. I need to know why I am doing what I'm doing. I don't like being told to do something without an end game in mind, without knowing the reasoning behind it. When I work, I need something to aim at. Some employers don't like this because they like their employees to be cogs in a machine they control. I don't like those jobs and I don't want them. The place I was applying to was not that kind of workplace, and they liked my answer. Ended up being a great job where my boss valued my input and trusted me to take the reins on a variety of tasks. Edit. Wow. Thanks for the gold and silver. RIP my inbox. Being vague. Can you elaborate? Yeah. Edit. Wow. Was having a not so cool day but got here to see I got my first gold. Thanks. Stranger. Now to figure out what it does. I hate this interview question. I interview candidates every few months. This is a totally useless question. The field I interview for usually has passionate people, so instead I ask of all the aspects of doing job, which part of the process do you enjoy the most? Nobody is nervous about this question. Gives me some insight into what they want to be working on, where they think they are strongest, and what would make them happy and productive versus bored. Figure out a skill that's not required for the job you are applying for, but is required for the job 2 promotions above that job. Then say it's your big weakness but that also you are looking to learn and develop that skill from people who are strong at it. And X200B. Alternatively, if you're far enough along in your career that you have had several promotions and have reports people to delegate to, you can say you were never as good as other people at skill someone below your job level must do, but that's why you've learned to delegate it. Terrible handwriting is my biggest weakness. How so? You'll never know what I wrote down. It looks like a blind man wrote. Edit. And thank you everyone who wished me a happy cake day. I keep replying and whatnot but I'm about to go to work. So here is one big thank you. Also thanks for making it feel like I'm not alone on the bad handwriting thing. I've always been embarrassed about it but I appreciate you all with horrid handwriting. I don't feel so alone. I interviewed a girl once and she said honestly, cake. I can never say no to it. And X200B. She was so genuine and the answer struck us all as honestly hilarious. We hate those corporate interview questions too. It was more about finding someone who could answer questions like a real person, and had some sort of personality show through. It's amazing how many people just couldn't answer certain questions, as though they were so nervous to get it wrong they froze up. And X200B. In another interview, my boss asked a candidate, tell me about a time you screwed up at work. She thought for a while and said, gosh, I'm sorry. There are certainly times, but there's nothing major that comes to mind at the moment. I'll think on it while we do other questions. That's what we wanted as interviewers. Not a perfect answer, just people that seemed comfortable and normal, lol. I was asked this during an interview with Uber and I was completely caught off guard. I ended up fumbling and saying something along the lines of I cannot ride a unicycle, for which I immediately regretted. My biggest weakness is that sometimes in interviews, I have absolutely no idea how to answer some of the questions. Edit. Thanks for popping my gold cherry, stranger. Random off topic. But I once had an interviewer ask me, if you were an item on the salad bar, what would you be and why? Which I replied, shredded cheese, because I'm full fat and straight off the block. They absolutely loved the answer and thought I was a quick thinker. But Alice, I'm just frequently thinking about cheese. As someone who interviews hundreds of people each year, this question stumps almost every person asked. The worst responses are, I have trouble being on time, I'm argumentative, I don't get along with. I also don't think disguising strengths as weaknesses is a good idea either. The best response I think I have heard, besides not being able to ride a unicycle, is, I make mistakes, but I am only human. I am sure I will make some mistakes along the way learning the ins and outs of this position, but as soon as I know I made a mistake, I try to fix it immediately and make sure it doesn't happen again. Just my 2 cents. One of my actual weaknesses, when I get nervous excited, I tend to speak really fast and breathlessly. This can actually have a negative influence on my job as I work in healthcare and have to communicate during emergencies. And X200B. For my next interview, I will bring this up and say I have discovered that taking a second to collect myself and take a deep breath seems to calm my nerves and allow me to say what is needed in a more collected manner. My weakness is I can get too focused on a task trying to perfect it, and waste time trying to get a 96 to a 97 when 90 is acceptable. On the blueprints we get they say there is a plus-minus tolerance of 3 mm for my measurements. That is way too huge, and I insist on trying to get it down to at least 1 mm. In my most recent interview, got the job, I answered I don't like to stay late. I'll come in half an hour early at the drop of a hat. But if you tell me I'm off at 4 and then work conspires to try to keep me longer, I will not be staying. Work stops at 4. Period. Depending on the job and culture, this can break your chances of getting the job, but pretty much anyone can sympathize with not wanting to stay later, and it doesn't come off as one of those smart ass I'm a perfectionist answers. It also tells them that you probably won't be racking up that expensive overtime. I printed out a card that says sometimes I over-prepare and handed it to them when they asked it. I got the job. I have absolutely no patience for office politics, conspiracies, bullying, micromanagement, or corporate cheerleading. I want to work somewhere friendly and open and fair, where I can treat colleagues as equals and be pretty much left to do my job. In return, I can do it extremely well. I always say that my biggest weaknesses are the ones I don't know about yet, because the ones I do know about I can, and do, work to improve on. And then I seg into a conversation about how I take criticism very well and am always open to suggestions for ways in which I can improve my performance. An actual weakness you do have, and stop with the I'm perfectionists, I'm too helpful and all that jazz. No one believe it anymore. You're not fooling anyone, and some might think you're taking them for stupid people. Not a great thing to convey. And X200B. Also, usually, you have 2 weeks of probation period. They will see your actual weaknesses during that time. If you weren't honest during your interview, that won't help building trust between you and management. Not a good thing. And X200B. So talk about an actual weakness you have, and what you're doing to improve on it. And it has to be something related to the job you're seeking.